Association, I welcome all of you here tonight for the State of the College with President Byerly. First, a few housekeeping items for this evening's program, even though by now I'm sure you're all familiar with how a Zoom presentation works. We have utilized the audience mute feature in order to ensure that the presentation is not interrupted by any background noise. We invite you to include your full name and class year on your profile. You can do this by clicking on the three dots in the upper right-hand corner of your video on the gallery screen and select rename, then type in your name as you'd like it to appear. In Zoom, there are different views. We recommend that you use the speaker view for the presentation portion of the program. After President Byerly's remarks, she will take questions. We will invite you to use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and we will unmute you to answer your questions at that time. I don't think any of us thought that we would not be able to actually be together in Farranon for the typical State of the College address that we have on the Saturday morning of reunion weekend. But we're not able to do that yet. This hopefully will be different next year. Both the youngest class of alumni joining us this year, the class of 2016, and those celebrating their 50th reunion, the class of 71, will most likely agree that they never believed their reunion would be virtual if you asked them this question over a year ago. I'm sure the members of the class of 1970 who missed their 50th reunion last year in 2020, but are celebrating this year will also agree. I'm sure we all concurred that nothing can replace the feeling of reconnecting with a former classmate on the quad during reunion. However, we have assembled a week's worth of engaging virtual opportunities that I hope you'll all take advantage of. The pandemic has brought on a new meaning to two words, nimble and pivot. If you look up the definition of these words in the dictionary, you'll find that they include the reference to quick action or the ability to turn around. I think we can all agree that from academics to athletics, there have been so many examples of Lafayette's ability to be nimble and to pivot over the last year. An example is the enrollment division. Their efforts during this challenging time resulted in a top-notch class of 2025. While many other colleges were struggling to meet enrollment quotas, Lafayette is hoping to enroll 806 first-year students. That was the number as of May 26th. Some highlights of this class include students hailing from 33 states and territories compared to 31 a year ago. 48 different countries of citizenship are represented in the class of 2025 compared to 35 in last year's class. And marquee awards merit scholarships have enabled the class of 2025 to include 225 marquee award winners compared to 101 in last year's class. I guess we can say thank you to alumni's support. In one of the most challenging times for higher education, these numbers illustrate a few key points. Number one, the desire for a Lafayette education is still in high demand. Number two, our student body is growing. Number three, our students' academic achievements are higher than ever. For a nimble year, we certainly pivoted in the right direction. This success results from the efforts of many and the inspiration of one leader, our president, Alison Byerly. Alison Byerly's vision and leadership propelled Lafayette through a new strategic direction for the college, focused on affordability, distinction, and growth, a more than $425 million capital campaign, and so much more. So now I would like to welcome President Byerly, Lafayette's 17th president and soon to be Carleton College's 12th president, to give her final State of the College address. President Byerly.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thank you to all of you who are here. You might have seen that I turned my microphone off to mute a short while ago because there's so much thunder in the background. So I apologize if you hear a lot of thunder and kind of dramatic sounds that would be appropriate to a Victorian novel. But in fact, the weather in Easton is not terrific today. So if you are feeling badly about not being here for reunion, rest assured that it would be very wet if you were huddled under a tent for drinks tonight. So there is that consolation. That said, I wish my last State of the College address was taking place in Farranon with folks sitting in chairs in front of me that I could chat with before and afterwards, and then follow the address by standing in front of the driveway and watching the band and the alumni march by as part of the alumni parade. Some of my favorite memories of Lafayette involve just watching the streams of alumni from all different classes walk by as Steve and I would stand and wave. It's hard for me to believe that this is my last alumni gathering as president of Lafayette, and it's making me, of course, very nostalgic. I'll try and keep that under control, but there might be a few anecdotes that come out in the course of my remarks. I was thinking, in reflecting on this being my last alumni address, I was thinking of my very first engagement with Lafayette alumni, which took place the spring that I was appointed before I became president, but was kind of preparing to be president. There was a week that I spent in Boston where I was serving as a visiting scholar at MIT. And, I was following everything Lafayette with great avidity, anxious to get to know more about Lafayette. And I read on Twitter that some Lafayette alumni were going to be gathering at a sports bar in Boston to watch one of the last basketball games of the season and cheer on the Pards. I forget who they were playing, but they were gathering at a sports bar that, I knew it was only a few miles away from where I was. So I thought, I'll show up and introduce myself. So I went down to this bar. I actually circled the block twice before getting up the nerve to walk in, because I thought, what will it be like? I've never met these people before. Will they even how will I recognize them? Will they know who I am, or will they care? And circled the block twice, walked into this bar. I thought, how will I spot the Lafayette people? And I saw a young woman wearing leopard pajamas in one corner. And I saw another woman wearing a leopard scarf. And I saw a bunch of guys in maroon sweatshirts. And then I saw about 10 other people converge on them with lots of big hugs. And I said, those look like my people. And so I walked over and introduced myself, and they seemed very pleased that the new president was coming to hang out with them. So I sat down and had a beer and watched the game for about an hour and chatted with them. And it was just a lovely example of everything that I have so enjoyed about Lafayette, which is the incredible engagement, enthusiasm, and love for the college that is at the core of what makes Lafayette terrific. The strong sense of community that I felt that very first day before I was even president and felt, welcomed in with a big hug has really been the essence of my experience as president. And my opportunities to meet alumni over the years have been some of my most precious memories. I hesitate to give many examples because I don't want to leave out any group of alumni that I enjoyed spending time with, whether it's Sarasota, Chicago, Dallas, San Francisco, and lots of places in between. But one of the things that was really remarkable to me as I got to know the alumni community was the combination of sort of commonality and difference among different alumni groups. Absolutely, there were different issues that were of interest to people in different parts of the country. And those of you who are of different generations had different Lafayette experiences in certain ways. And so conversations with alums from the 70s are different from conversations with alums from the 90s. And yet the core of the Lafayette experience was extraordinarily similar from generation to generation and from coast to coast. I could talk with alumni from all over, covering a span of 50 or 60 years, and they talked about the great friends that they made. They talked about the faculty who they cared about. They talked about coaches or deans who had mentored them. They talked about their love for the college and their interest in seeing it grow stronger over the years. And they talked about Lafayette as really a kind of linchpin of their whole life experience in the way that it exposed them not only to new ideas and new concepts as students, but also created a network of friends and allies that were helpful throughout their lives. And so it has been an extraordinary pleasure to get to know so many members of the alumni community and to feel that I got a whole history of Lafayette, even within my first year, and hearing so many of the stories, jokes, anecdotes, Some of the stories are probably ones that a president shouldn't hear, but people took comfort in the fact that it was too late to expel them if they graduated 25 years ago. But I loved all of those encounters, and it really gave me such a rich sense of the college that I was then able to bring back and help share with the students. And so in being part of the present day community, the alumni experience, I think, was part of what I was able to sort of help channel. And so I want to thank all of the alumni and parents and friends of the college who helped me become part of the Lafayette community very early on. I think about that sense of community and the way that it really bolsters Lafayette. I turn to that as really the source of the college's resilience over a year that has been, as we all know, a truly extraordinary year. You've read a lot of updates, you've heard a lot about everything that went on this year, but words can hardly begin to describe how challenging this year was for every member of our community, for our faculty, for our staff, for the administration, for the trustees in their leadership role, but most especially for our students. And in working closely with everyone who was struggling to support our students this year, I was struck again and just immeasurably cheered and heartened myself by seeing the utter commitment on the part of every member of the community to trying to make the experience of Lafayette everything that it could be for our students from last spring through the present. And I count the alumni among that extended community because so many of you were helpful to the college during this time, reached out in a variety of ways, offered to host students in virtual externships, offered to share your experience and expertise, those of you who were in medical fields, or just offered a cheering word of support at a time that was really difficult for all of us. And so when I think about what led us to the decisions that we made, some of which were difficult, all of which had to be made very quickly, I really felt that the strength of the community was part of what kept all of us going. And I certainly think that that is part of what helped the students feel, a sense of commitment to continuing their education during circumstances that were difficult. One of the things that made it all seem worthwhile was the experience that we had the weekend before last of finally having the long-awaited class of 2021 commencement and seeing those students walk across the stage in person, in actuality, hold a diploma case. We didn't hand them the actual diplomas. We didn't have them yet printed and we didn't want anything to get wet. But they took pictures of themselves holding diploma cases. They waved to their parents in the audience or their friends and family that they had brought with them. And in spite of the fact that it happened to be an extraordinarily cold and rainy day, every one of them was beaming. Every one of them was excited. Every parent was proud. Every faculty member and staff member was delighted to be there. There was nothing that could have made that day better, even if it had been, 80 degrees and sunny. And so I want to thank everyone who helped make that day possible for our students, because after a long road getting there, we felt that we really achieved something significant by doing that. When I think about everything that our faculty and staff did over the course of the year, as Tracy said, there was a lot of pivoting, there was a lot of nimbleness, there was a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking differently about how we would operate. And one of the things that gives me a lot of hope and excitement for the future of Lafayette is seeing how quickly people adapted to those circumstances and how anxious they were to be creative in how classes were offered and how students were supported and how we helped students try and develop networks and bonds, even when they weren't able to do a lot of the activities that they would normally engage in. And so I think that sense of creativity and real spirit of kind of can-do, practical, sort of engineering inflected spirit of Lafayette was really essential to our ability to make this year work. And I think that it is one of the things that will help propel Lafayette forward, in the coming months and years, as we think about what are the things that we learned during this period that we can continue. There's a lot that we don't like about spending hours and hours on Zoom. There's a lot that's great about seeing people on this call who were not slated to come to reunion this year, who live very far from the campus, who wouldn't otherwise be part of this gathering, who can be here right now. And so we want to maintain the things that were strong in that experience and the things that we found added to our capacities. And then we want to return to the things that make Lafayette truly what it is, which is gathering in person, seeing people face to face, having the opportunity to sit in groups and talk with each other. One of the things that I think was most useful about this experience, when you try and look at what was positive in this year, was, if anything, it really strengthened the case for the kind of residential liberal arts education that we offer at Lafayette. Some of you might remember that when the pandemic hit and classes went virtual and colleges shut down, there was a lot of conversation in the media about whether this would actually be sort of a death knell for higher education. Once everyone saw that classes could be offered virtually, would they want to pay money to go and live on a campus again? Wouldn't it be more convenient if everybody stayed home and took their classes in their pajamas from their bedrooms and didn't have to bother with this whole college experience? And what we found was that the hunger for that kind of experience was deeper than we ever imagined. That, that the pain that students felt when they weren't able to be on campus with each other, that the way in which faculty, longed for and missed the experience of being surrounded by students in the classroom, made it even more precious when we welcomed the students back to campus in spring and they were able to see each other, albeit masked. They were able to see faculty and staff. They were able to gather in very limited ways, mostly outside for the first couple of months. Everybody made the best of it. And everybody recognized that being together as part of a learning community is what makes Lafayette special. And so I think that for us, it has sort of strengthened our commitment to offering the kind of education in which students learn from each other, in which people spend time learning to talk with each other, learning to exchange views, learning to listen to each other. All of those things are much harder to do through technology and much easier to do when you're sitting around a coffee table, when you're sitting in class together, when you're hanging around in Farranon, when you're having a beer at CHT, when you're doing the things that are part of life at Lafayette. And so it was a tremendous learning experience for all of us in that sense. And it was a way in which the community really rose to the challenges of the year. The other way in which this year was challenging, of course, was that there was a lot of discussion about the need for that campus to confront experiences of racism, experiences of sexual misconduct, experiences of bias or challenges that students and other colleagues felt in their social experience at Lafayette that were heightened by the ability to stand back and take some time to talk about these things, to write about them on social media, to gather and think about what they meant. And so one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that in spite of the energy that had to go into just offering the classes and making things work this year, we also devoted quite a lot of attention to issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and thought a lot about ways in which we could be stronger as an institution in becoming a welcoming environment for all of our students and for all of our faculty and staff and colleagues and friends. And so that work is going to be ongoing. We only scratched the surface of the things that we need to talk about, but the fact that even in a somewhat remote setting, even in the kind of attenuated communication circumstances that we found ourselves in, we were having some real dialogue and we were confronting some real problems. That's something that I think we can be extraordinarily proud of. And when I think about the fact that this year, as I think many of you know, was the 50th anniversary of coeducation at Lafayette, something that we celebrated virtually throughout the year, looking at that history of the college confronting ways in which it could be stronger and adapting to change, again, gives me hope that we will continue to strengthen as an institution and continue to think about ways in which we can be stronger and support an even wider range of students. One of the things I also reflect on as I think about the way in which community is really at the core of what makes Lafayette special is thinking about the ways in which the alumni community and the support of the community as a whole has really been critical to many of the things that we feel we've done during the time of my presidency to advance the college. If you think about the success of the Live Connected, Lead Change campaign and what it means to raise $426 million, as part of that makes you think about events and kind of the glamour and the fun and, the pictures of people at cocktail parties. But really what that represents is work and commitment. Hard work on the part of all of our colleagues who are out helping to share the message of why Lafayette needs support, but everyone who supported the annual fund, everyone who supported the campaign, everyone who supported the college just through enthusiasm and through recommending it to friends, all of those forms of support are what made the campaign a success. And the campaign is part of what will make Lafayette continue to be successful in the future. The funds collected through the campaign, many of them went into the endowment and will strengthen the college in perpetuity. Some of the funds resulted in some of the beautiful buildings that we've been able to add on campus and additions like the Rockwell Integrated Sciences Center, the Williams Arts Campus, Buck Hall, the Oxley Center for Global Education. These are wonderful learning spaces that our students enjoy every day that would not have been possible without the support of many of the people on this call and many other alumni and friends of the college. It's also the case that the initiative that Tracy mentioned, what I really think of as kind of the signature effort of my time at Lafayette, the Affordability and Distinction Through Growth Plan, also represents an enormous commitment on the part of every member of the college community to seeing the college become stronger over time. I was asked not long ago about, what are the things that I look back on with most pleasure and pride as I think about the ending of my time at Lafayette. And I said that actually, though there are great events that I can reflect on that were hugely fun and that I have wonderful pictures of, in many ways, my most satisfying day at Lafayette might have been the day that we had a retreat with the Board of Trustees and faculty and staff to talk about this idea we had for pushing for more need-based financial aid and why that would make the college stronger in the future. We spent several hours doing presentations talking about how with more financial aid, we could bring stronger students. And with more students, we could bring more faculty. And with a slightly larger college, we would be able to expand our facilities. And how all of this would power the college in the future, make us stronger, make us more able to face the challenges that we knew would be coming in the coming decades. And how that kind of growth in our ability to bring students from a wide variety of backgrounds, regardless of their family's ability to afford Lafayette College, would be an immeasurable benefit, not only to those students in getting a Lafayette education, but to the peers who would be sitting in classrooms with them and learning from them, and from the college that would benefit reputationally by becoming stronger through the presence of these students. And so I am enormously proud that the board, the faculty, the administration, and ultimately all of you, the alumni community, supported that vision for making the college stronger by recognizing that the core of a strong college is the students. If you can attract strong students, if you can give them a great education, and if you can see them be successful in the world, that's what really defines the very best colleges. And seeing Lafayette advance during the time of my presidency, seeing Lafayette continue to draw stronger and stronger students with higher SAT scores, but also greater diversity than ever before, really has been extraordinarily satisfying. And that really is something that is a credit to every member of this community who recognize that as terrific as Lafayette is, it can always be better. And the source of its strength really is its people, its students, its faculty, its staff, its trustees, its alumni, and its parents, all of the members of the community who come together to make Lafayette what it is. So as I think about how difficult it is to imagine saying goodbye to Lafayette, and as I think about all of the wonderful experiences that I've had here, I really feel that the commonality is that the moments that have been most satisfying and the moments that have been most quintessentially Lafayette have been moments of gathering together as a community, whether it's at something like commencement, whether it's the 150th at Yankee Stadium and gathering with many thousands of Lafayette alums and friends over many generations to cheer us on to a tremendous victory. Whether it's gathering on the quad on a beautiful sunny day and seeing all the students out throwing frisbees and lying on the grass and just being in the presence of other members of the Lafayette community. Those are the moments that really bring home to me what it is that makes Lafayette so special, which is really that commitment to the experience of students, that commitment to every member of the community supporting and helping each other, and that commitment to seeing the college continue to grow and to grow stronger. It's not enough to love the college and to feel that it's terrific, to actually be able to imagine the ways in which it needs to change over time and to become stronger in the future. That's the real measure of love of a college. And I have been so enormously proud of the way in which, even as alumni reminisce about the past and the things they enjoyed about the Lafayette of 20, 30, 40 years ago, they also are really excited about seeing it change and seeing it grow and seeing how it can continue to advance in the future. And so I feel very, very confident that under the new leadership that Nicole Hurd will bring as the next president of Lafayette, and the continued support that she will enjoy from the alumni community as I have, Lafayette is really poised for a wonderful next chapter. And I will be cheering from the sidelines as a fellow liberal arts college president and excited to support Lafayette in every way that I can. So I think I will pause there and see what questions I might be able to answer. And I have a couple of colleagues here to help me if I get stuck.
Just encourage people.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to encourage people to use the raise hand feature in Zoom. You can find it under reactions if you want to raise your hand.
Mm-hmm. So the protocol is people can raise hands, or can they also write questions?
Yes, you can also type questions directly into the chat to me. I'd be happy to relay them to Alison, or if someone else will relay them to Alison.
That sounds good. So this is like a classroom. You have to pause for a minute and give people a chance to collect their thoughts. Of course, with names out there, I could call on people. That's a threat.
Where's John Leon?
Exactly. Where's John Leon when you need him? That's right. Tracy, I might ask while we're waiting for questions to come in, as someone who spends a lot of time talking to alumni and who I'm sure have heard from a lot of alumni this year, are there questions that you have heard from folks as they think about, what this year has meant to the college, or things that you think alumni are curious about looking back on the experiences of this past year?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that even though we look back at our different times on campus, we're all enormously proud of what the college is today and what it's become and what the future of the college is. I get this question a lot, especially from my group of friends who think like being an active alum means that you are, just taking a walk down memory lane and you just get together with alumni and you talk about what happened on campus in the early 80s. And as you know, like that isn't what there's so much more that goes on. And that's why I encourage everyone to find different ways that you can connect. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. The students on campus need the support of alumni. It can be people who are CEOs from the class, from the 80s, or it can be people who have just graduated. They're in like their entry-level jobs. They've graduated 2 years ago. And I think there are so many opportunities, let's say, to donate, or so many opportunities through Gateway that you don't have to be. I've talked to young students, like my son and his friends, they think their jobs aren't important enough to be interesting or to be helpful to students. So when you see that, to a sophomore at Lafayette, if you're 1 year out of school and you have a job, you have the coolest job in the world. You know how to get through an interview. So everyone can contribute something. So there is, there is a lot of nostalgia, but there's also a lot of pride in seeing what a Lafayette degree is in today's world. And I don't know if every other college can say that, but everyone from the 80s says like, we would never get in now. And that's a great thing to be able to say.
That's wonderful to hear you say that that's actually a good sign, that it's sort of a rueful joke that people make, I wouldn't be able to get in today, but that's what you want, is a college where the value of your degree gets stronger all the time, and the students behind you are even stronger than the students ahead of you. And, stronger is a relative term. College has changed a lot, and high school has changed a lot, over the last 20, 30, 40 years. So it's hard to make those direct comparisons. But I think that, Tracy, you make exactly the right point in saying students can learn from alumni no matter what the alumni are doing, even if they're still figuring out, what they want their permanent career path to be. Because having those models of thinking about life, of making those choices, of getting started are also, equally valuable to students. And it's one of the things I hear from students most often is how much they appreciate, kind of the example and support of alumni. So that is exactly right. Adam, is that a hand?
Yes, thank you, Alison. So I have the benefit as a staff member and a colleague for your tenure and a member of the Lafayette team for 15 years to sit in and listen to the state of the college updates. And it's not a question from myself, but I know in my virtual travels, I think folks really want to know about whether it's endowment performance or financial strength coming out of the pandemic. I think one of the things that they had appreciated during the last 16 months was transparency. To get where we want to be, we had to share some of the tough decisions and the tough things that we focus, and it allowed us to shift and think about opportunities and risks and really bring folks in that though this is the memory that they had of Lafayette, this is still part of running a type of business in a small city. Could you maybe kind of give an overview to the folks of how we performed from a financial perspective and how that positions us well coming out of this into what we seem as some more normalcy? But that's kind of the questions that I have heard over the last 16 months, and I think it would be relevant to this group.
Sure, I'd be very happy to do that. And you're right, that is certainly something that people have been keenly interested in throughout and continue to ask about. And, those of you who were part of some of the updates that we offered over the course of the year know that finances were an important part of all of our conversations, because, when we look back on where we were more than a year ago, when things started in March and April of last year, we started doing financial projections of what it might mean to see the kinds of enrollment drops that we were anticipating, to incur the kinds of expenses that we incurred for COVID testing, and to think about what it would mean to offer the kinds of relief and rebates that we offered to students in a variety of circumstances. And we were looking at many millions of dollars of deficit as a potential outcome for this year. And in preparation for that, we made some tough financial decisions. We asked a lot of our faculty and staff, who in fact had salary reductions for the entire year, and for a good portion of the year had their retirement contributions suspended and then reinstated in the spring. So we actually took money out of the compensation budget in order to help support the institution and ensure that we were well prepared. Many other institutions made similar moves. We moved faster than some, and I think that put us in a good position. We recognized that acting quickly would give us, the confidence to make whatever decisions we thought were right for the fall. And in making the decision that we felt that we weren't confident that we could bring all of our students back to campus in the fall and guarantee the safety of the community, we worked very quickly to put together the remote education that was what our students experienced in the fall, and then welcomed our students back in the spring for a combination of remote and in-person classes. And so the financial decisions surrounding that certainly took a toll. We lost some revenue, both in some students choosing to step out until things got back to normal, and also because we were fairly unusual among schools in offering a bit of a reduction in tuition to students who were studying from home, recognizing that it wasn't exactly the same experience. And so we did have a loss of revenue that was part of the overall picture. With careful planning, we were able to bring our resources into much better alignment by the spring. We currently are looking at a deficit at the end of this year that, while one never wants to think about a deficit, it's at about $2 million now, which compared to the 30+ million that we were anticipating a year ago felt like quite a victory. We also were fortunate that while when the pandemic started, the stock market was not looking like it would be our friend, and we were very concerned about the state of the endowment. Of course, seeing the performance of the stock market over the course of the last year, has been very helpful as we think about future endowment support. In fact, it was a kind of exciting moment for us this fall when the endowment crested 1 billion for the first time in Lafayette's history. Our chief investment officer, Krishna Mamani, warns us not to expect that it will necessarily stay over 1 billion forever. The ups and downs of the market are part of what we're always accustomed to. But to see that level of strength really puts Lafayette in a league to feel confident for the future and feel very solid. And I would say, finally, the most important piece of the financial picture, really that we begin and end with, of course, is enrollment. Losing a few students during the period that we were partially remote and students were not living on campus, as part of what contributed to the challenges. Bringing students back in the spring was very helpful. And as we look to the coming year, we have extremely strong enrollment for the fall. In fact, we're slightly over-enrolled. We, at this point, have slightly exceeded our target for the entering class. We wanted to bring in a little bit more students than usual because, in fact, we are still missing a few students, who would have been first years this year, who deferred and will be part of next year's entering class. And so we currently have about 800 students registered to start as first years in this coming fall. And though that it'll be a bit of a stretch for us, we feel ready for it. And that will certainly help us get back on track financially as well. The fact that we had strong applications and strong enrollment, is a sign of the real strength of the Lafayette brand that I think is one of the things that gives us confidence for the future. And so though it's been a tough road and we asked a lot of our community, we feel that we've landed in a very good place. It looks like Lisa Castle has her hand up. Yeah, Lisa.
Oh, I'm already unmuted. That's awesome.
You was very fast that way.
That's good. Well, Alison, you've learned so much in your time here, and we've been so fortunate to have you as our president. And so I'm going to say thank you once again. But looking to the future, I'm just wondering what you're going to share with Nicole to help her get started on a good foot.
That is a great question. Presidential transitions are tricky things because there's so much information. You don't want to overwhelm a new president coming in, and yet you want them to get up to speed as quickly as possible. You'll find Nicole is a very quick study, and being a very warm and engaging personality, she's already forming good connections with folks, even virtually, as she's starting to hold meetings and get together with folks. In my conversations with Nicole, I have certainly tried to share some of what I understand of kind of the Lafayette culture. In some ways, what's hardest to get is what's not in the documents. You can prepare briefing documents, you can share spreadsheets. It's kind of the backstory and the history, not only the sort of where are the bodies buried, questions of what's been difficult in the past, but also just sharing some of what's special. That sense that, as I said, I partly managed to, just sort of imbibe with the air as just spending time with people. And, that's, I'm sure, what she'll find too. But I think that in my conversations with her, I've talked a lot about the strength of the community, the ways in which you can rely on people, but also the need to be attentive to the fact that it's been a difficult year for everyone. And as I think about, in fact, my next posting at Carleton, there too, one of the things we've been thinking a lot about is just it's been a tough and exhausting year, and folks need a chance to kind of sort of collect themselves and kind of refresh themselves. And that's why I think a transition now, can be very, very helpful to the college, because this is a natural reset point in so many different ways. And I think the energy and vision brought by new leadership, will be very welcome at a time that people, have really been through a lot together.
I hope you told her to get some leopard clothes too.
Yes, and I offered her to lend her my leopard coat that some of you have seen. So we'll see if she takes me up on it. But I think she's ready for that sense of style that comes with leopard wear. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Allison, I do have a question from the chat that I'd like
Yeah.
to pose to you. And this is actually coming from Michael Weisberger, our newly elected Alumni Association Vice President.
Absolutely.
He's saying, in your mind, what is the single biggest challenge that a school like ours, or the one that you're going to, is going to face post-pandemic?
That's a great question. So thank you, Weisy. One of the things that I think one of the things we all recognize, and this from your own experience and have probably read this commentary in the media, which is, that COVID did not invent problems, it just intensified them. That a lot of things that were already challenging, just you could see how much more challenging they were because of the kind of accelerating quality that this crisis brought about. I would say that even prior to COVID, our biggest challenge is thinking about how to offer the education we want to offer to as many students as possible when we know it's a very expensive education. Offering this quality education costs money, and not everybody has enough money to afford that. And that's why financial aid is so important. So thinking about both the cost structure and how to keep costs down as much as possible, but also thinking about resources and how to build resources in order to kind of meet those needs. I think that's going to be a challenge for every school. And it's interesting, I'm in touch with a lot of presidents at other colleges and universities, through various leadership groups that I'm part of. And so I talk with presidents, not only of peer institutions, but some better resourced schools, and also some schools that don't have the resources of Lafayette. And at different levels, everybody faces the same challenge. Whether your endowment is smaller than Lafayette's or larger than Lafayette's, it's not large enough for your ambitions. And you have to think about what you can do to create a structure that is sustainable over time. I know it's something that certainly our trustees at Lafayette have much on their minds. I know from my experience at Carleton thus far that the Carleton trustees also are thinking about this too. And so that question of how to offer the highest quality education in a way that the maximum number of talented students can participate in it, that really, I think, will be, if anything, an even tougher question in the future. It's a great question.
And we have another chat question. Back in October 2020, when you made your announcement that you'd be stepping down, you did speak about your plans to go as a visiting scholar to the University of Pennsylvania. And since that time, in the spirit of being nimble and pivot, I suppose, you made the decision to go to Carleton College. And this person is, wondering what sort of attracted you to Carleton and how you, made that change in your initial plans.
Well, thank you for being interested in my plans as well, post Lafayette. I was excited about the idea of a sabbatical and having time for research. I was, in touch with folks at Penn and really looking forward to spending time there. But in choosing this as a good moment for a transition in my career, I expected that I would be looking, ultimately for another position, and I didn't expect one to come up so soon. College presidencies at the right kind of college, one that you feel well suited to and one that you feel drawn to, come along rarely enough that when the Carleton presidency opened up and I realized that might be a possibility, I couldn't pass it up. One of the things that I love about Carleton will be very familiar to those of you, here on this call in thinking about Lafayette. Carleton also is a place with a really strong sense of community. It's a very warm and friendly place. It's got kind of a Midwestern, vibe to it. My own daughter was a student there, as you've probably read. She's an alum of the class of 15. And in watching her experience, I really was very taken with both the strong focus on academics. They're very strong in the sciences, but also have great programs in the humanities and the arts. There's a strong sense of mission and commitment to that academic program. But there's also a real strong spirit of fun. They do a lot of pranks. They have a lot of fun. They don't take themselves too seriously. There's a kind of humility that is very much a part of the culture. And I liked that as well. It's a very down home kind of feel. So in spite of the fact that it's a, very it's a selective college and one that anyone might feel proud to be at. But at the same time, it also has a very kind of down home feel to it. And so that's a nice combination that you don't see everywhere that was attractive to me. And I felt that, in recognizing that there's a kind of arc to leadership and that I had accomplished a number of the things that, we had in mind when I started at Lafayette, and recognizing that this was a kind of reset point where there would be, sort of a new phase starting for the college. I did feel both that Lafayette would benefit by starting with new leadership in this next phase of strategic planning, but also that, for me, started a new institution was a great way to enter into this next phase and think about some of the same issues. As Michael Weisberger's question shows, they are common issues across all colleges, but a chance to think about them in a slightly different environment, with a slightly different, community and slightly different feel to the academic program. I guess I would end up by saying it's a chance to learn something new. And I love learning new things. It's part of what makes being a president fun. When I got my PhD in Victorian literature, I did not expect to know a lot about the schedules of public safety officers or the costs of HVAC if we were to install it in Pardee, or the details of how athletic scholarships work. But those are things that I've learned about as president of Lafayette that I think are really interesting and that contribute to my understanding of these sort of special organisms that are liberal arts colleges. And so a chance to learn about a new place and a place that I care a lot about, was really a wonderful opportunity for me. So thank you for that question. I appreciate that.
We have another question in the chat from Richard Gervais, and he's saying, how grateful they've been for your leadership throughout the pandemic and the focus on the safety of our community. They were very happy to see that the vaccine requirement is in place for students returning in the fall. And this question has to do with having a similar requirement for faculty and staff, something that they would really like to see, because it seems that would enhance the safety of everyone and hasten the return to pre-pandemic community interaction. So the question is what is the consideration weighing against a requirement for faculty staff vaccination?
Well, I think, in having said that, I'd give some of my friends a chance to talk. I see Amir has anticipated me in putting Dr. Annette Diorio on screen here with me. So Annette, why don't you take a stab at that?
Certainly, and thanks for the question. It's a great question. So one of the things that we wanted to do, and we actually have those data right now, closing in on 91% of our faculty and staff have gotten vaccinated, which is, a terrific number. It certainly puts you well above the concern for community spread. We've been focusing on an educational and access campaign so far, but we did hold out there the possibility that we could change our mind in the coming months about whether or not we would require the remaining faculty and staff to receive a vaccination. So honestly, for students who live in very close proximity, who really spend a lot of time with one another in largely unsupervised environments, which are a little bit different than classroom environments and administrative offices where you really can keep a pretty close handle on what's going on. The vaccine really seemed like the thing we needed to do to give students the thing they wanted most, which was a social life that was free of masks and free of staying 6 feet apart from each other and free of crowd limits and those sorts of things. So that's really what drove our decision.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful.
And I think we have actually our last question in the chat, which the timing works out well. So this basically is sort of a statement question. As the college looks into the future, do you see a shift in seeing Lafayette as not just a sort of a liberal arts school, referring to Lafayette as a liberal arts school, moving towards a bit more of an emphasis on our strengths in engineering and the sciences?
Well, that's a great question for the next president. I think one of the things that I have most loved about Lafayette is the balance that is often a tension, embodied in that question, which is, we sometimes describe Lafayette as a liberal arts and engineering college simply because it's a kind of unusual genre. There are not that many liberal arts colleges that also have engineering. And, some of you have heard me speak, over the past years, and I'm not alone in this, about the way in which that's a really unique strength for Lafayette. It's not just a matter of the curriculum. It actually is part of the sort of DNA of the culture of Lafayette, that it really has this great balance of sort of the practical and the ideal. And there's a way in which I think the kind of spirit of engineering, because so many of our alums, so many of our trustees have that kind of can-do engineering spirit is beautifully balanced by, the tremendous strength in humanities and arts and other traditional liberal arts disciplines. And so, I don't know whether Lafayette would ever want to define itself differently in the future. I think that we have really strengthened engineering quite a lot over the last few years through the work of the campaign and much of the work that has been done, both in terms of facilities and in adding professorships and in strengthening the engineering program. But we've also taken tremendous strides in the humanities as well. And of course, the sciences got a tremendous boost from the Rockwell Integrated Sciences Center. So I think, a liberal arts college should be excellent in all areas, that we can certainly have strengths that we point to as things that we're especially proud of at particular moments. But in the end, what students come to Lafayette for is a chance to sample everything, a chance to try a lot of different fields, a lot of different disciplines, and really explore everything the liberal arts has to offer. So I'm proud that Lafayette embodies and embraces engineering within the liberal arts definition. And there might come a time in the future that the college chooses to describe itself differently, but it always will have that special blend. And I think that's that combination, which, as I said, at times feels like a tension, but I think is a very productive synergy, that really is part of what makes Lafayette unique and something that I'm sure the college will continue to see as a source of strength and pride.
So Alison, there was one question that came in, and it's such a good one that I can't not ask it to you.
Okay.
So we'll finish with this from Thomas Brinkerhoff, class of 13. And he asked if you could talk about how Lafayette's relationship with Easton has evolved during your presidency.
Sure, I'd be happy to touch on that briefly. And I think it's something that I'm actually very excited to see continue, and something that I think has been a real strength of the college, even before my time as president, but something that I'm very proud of in my time here. In fact, we just had an event here at the president's house a couple of weeks ago where we offered an honorary degree to a local Easton citizen, Dick McAteer, and we did a private presentation of this here at the house. The mayor was there and made some remarks, and he spoke, so movingly of what we have accomplished together in bringing the college and the city into alignment on a number of issues over the last few years, that it was a wonderful affirmation of the way in which we have always understood that the city of Easton, is our home. It's a place we want to see thrive. It's a place we want to see be successful. And it really helps the college if those who come to the college and enjoy visiting here, can enjoy Easton at the same time. I think Easton really understands that the strength of the college is one of the big selling points of the town as well. We're a strong part of the tax base. We're a strong part of the local community. And I think that several of the building projects that we've been involved in, some of them involving the work on the Carl Sterner Arts Trail and on the Arts Campus, but even the completion of the building on McCartney Street that, as you know, was controversial in the minds of some folks in town, wondering if it would overwhelm the College Hill neighborhood. If you haven't been here to see it, walk by and see it. You will not hear a lot of complaints from folks in the neighborhood about it now that it's actually up. It's a great building. It has a cafe. It has a bookstore. It has amenities that local folks are already beginning to enjoy. And as we had hoped, it's starting to bring the community together, so that instead of feeling like there's the college and then the city of Easton is a block away, you sort of feel them blending together in that part of the neighborhood. And so I think that whether it's kind of physically coming together or co-sponsorship of grants that we've done with the city, or ways in which we supported their programming, I think all of those things have been really helpful to the college as well as to the city. And I certainly hope and expect that will continue. That's a great question. Thank you. If that was the last question, do you want to have the last word, Rachel, or shall I wrap up?
No, I think it's very appropriate for you to wrap up, Alison.
Okay, then I guess let me just say again that it has been such an enormous honor and privilege to be president of Lafayette College. It has just been a great joy in my life. It has been a wonderful opportunity to make friends with so many of you. I hope we will stay in touch. I hope we will stay friends. I look forward, as I said, to cheering the college on, from in many different ways from my future post. And I want to thank you all for your friendship and support. So good luck, Godspeed, and beat Lehigh.
Thank you so much, President Byerly. I'd like to also thank all of the people who joined us tonight, who took the time to spend this evening with us and hear from Alison for the last time. And I encourage all of you to attend more of the reunion events that are for the rest of the week. As we bid farewell to President Byerly, I invite all of you to add your well wishes to the chat.
Oh, thank you.
President Byerly, on behalf of the Alumni Association, I would like to extend our appreciation for your service to Lafayette and thank you for your leadership. You made alumni and parent engagement a priority, and we thank you for your willingness to connect with alumni, especially for participating in all the many virtual events, the town halls, all of your communication during the past year. I feel like I saw your face at least 3 times a week, and I'm not on the staff, so I don't think you ever take a minute off. I just want you to know we do have some gifts for you, and these are forthcoming. I apologize that there will not be an awkward Zoom gift presentation attempted tonight where I hold things up like a game show girl. But these gifts, and you'll see what I mean when you receive them, Rachel Moeller is going to be delivering them to you. These will serve to remind you that you will always be a leopard, even in Minnesota. So maybe a snow leopard. I don't know. Now, don't get scared. It's not like a leopard cat suit or anything. That hasn't come in yet. We haven't ordered that yet, but these gifts will be delivered, and they are with love from the alumni community. And we wish you the best at Carleton College. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure as well. And I'm tearing up looking at all the lovely things in the chat. So thank you all. I will conclude once again by noting that since I did receive an honorary degree from the college at the last commencement, I am now one of you. I am an honorary alum, and I will see you all at a reunion in the future.
Good. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
I'm enjoying just reading the rest of the chat. So that's why I'm hanging around.
Oh,
That's very nice.